Hello and welcome to the first of many episodes in the series that we're trying out where we read public domain books cover to cover because I'm afraid of copyright. um, so it's just casual read through. All right, this is not gonna be some kind of intellectual take. I don't have an English degree. I'm not that smart, but I want to read more, and this is a fun way to do that. So I'm going to take frequent breaks along the way to make jokes, to Google words. I'm going to probably recap entire sections for the benefit of the people in the audience who are kind of dumb like me. And there's probably going to be many times where we just get lost on tangents. I'm just probably going to go off and rant on a lot of different things that the book reminds me of, probably. Um, so today we'll be beginning one of the most oddly adapted and widely misunderstood books in all of literature, Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Most people probably think of like the 1930s black and white movies, where you got the big guy with the bolts in his neck, like lurching around, fire. He's afraid of fire, I guess. I don't know. But needless to say, there have been a lot of really odd adaptations throughout the years that aren't really that close to the source material. I'm not an expert on it. Like, I don't know what all the differences are. I haven't read the book, but I have dabbled a little bit in Junji Ito's work, and I know that he did a really good adaptation of it as well. So I know like the bits and pieces, and I know the basic plot points. But I also need to mention that Guillermo del Toro is going to be having a movie coming out, or it's already out. It's apparently it did really well at some film festivals already. It's going to be on Netflix in November, and then it's coming to some theaters October 17th, I believe. Um, so that'll be really cool. It looks like it's going to be a really faithful adaptation as well, from what I know about the books. But anyway, I just figured it'd be a good book to start this whole series with because spooky season, and because that movie's coming out, and because Frankenstein, I mean, it's really, really cool. As you'll see in the story, I mean, there's a lot of really good detail. The story behind how it was written is really cool too. So again, I'm not an expert, on the history of it or whatever, but I know that Mary Shelley, um, she's sort of like the grandmama of modern horror and kind of like modern sci-fi too, because Frankenstein's kind of like sci-fi in the way that he's brought back to life. It's like this really cool, anyway, it's really, really cool thing. So, Mary Shelley is basically every man's dream goth girlfriend, and she wrote this really cool book that we're going to read today, all the way back in 1818. That's crazy. So, yeah, hope you like it. This is kind of a train wreck of an introduction, but if there are any suggestions of books that you'd want me to read, they have to be public domain. So anything written before, I think, like the 1920s, anything written before that we could do cover to cover, like we're gonna do with this one. But I'm also into the idea of maybe reading a book and not really reading it on camera, but kind of just going through the plot points. That's neither here nor there. Let's go ahead and jump into the story. Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. We're going to skip down and start at the preface. All right. Preface. The event on which this fiction is founded has been supposed by Dr. Darwin and some of the physiological writers of Germany as not of impossible occurrence. I shall not be supposed as according the remotest degree of serious faith to such an imagination. Yet, in assuming it as the basis of a work of fancy, I have not considered myself as merely weaving a series of supernatural terrors. Okay, so we're already starting to kind of have a little bit of like a framing device here, where we're supposed to believe, it's sort of adding to like the we're supposed to believe that this is a true story. Um, the event on which the interest of the story depends is exempt from the disadvantages of a mere tale of specters or enchantment. It was recommended by the novelty of the situations which it develops, and, however impossible as a physical fact, affords a point of view to the imagination for the delineating of human passions more comprehensive and commanding than any which the ordinary relations of existing events can yield. Okay, so yeah, we're supposed to believe this is real. I really like that it says the event on which the interest of the story depends is exempt from the disadvantages of a mere tale of specters or enchantment. Meaning, it's almost as if to say, I wish I could say this is a ghost story. I wish I could say this was a campfire story. Ooh, that's real spooky. I like that. This is a scary story. I wish I could say it was fake. Okay, anyway, I have thus endeavored to preserve the truth of the elementary principles of human nature, which I have not scrupled to innovate upon their combinations. The Iliad, the tragic poetry of Greece, Shakespeare in The Tempest and Midsummer Night's Dream, and most especially Milton in Paradise Lost, conform to this rule, and the most humble novelist who seeks to confer or receive amusement from his labors may, without presumption, apply to prose fiction a license, or rather a rule, from the adoption of which so many exquisite combinations of human feeling have resulted in the highest specimens of poetry. Okay, so we're quoting some big names out there. I know Paradise Lost. I haven't read Paradise Lost. Obviously, we know the Iliad too. So kind of having some references to how those get into some darker territories of human nature and kind of reflect darker things in the human psyche. The circumstance on which my story rests was suggested in casual conversation. It was commenced partly as a source of amusement and partly as an expedient for exercising any untried resources of mind. Other motives were mingled with these as the work proceeded. I am by no means indifferent to the manner in which whatever moral tendencies exist in the sentiments or characters it contains shall affect the reader. Yet my chief concern in this respect has been limited to the avoiding of the enervating effects of the novels of the present day, and to the exhibition of the amiableness of domestic affection and the excellence of universal virtue. So this is sounding less and less like a framing device and more like literally just the author's the author's thoughts on her own writing, it sounds like. I don't know. I'll be honest, a lot of these words are going over my head. The excellent virtue. Okay, the opinions which naturally spring from the character and situation of the hero are by no means to be conceived as existing always in my own conviction, nor is any inference justly to be drawn from the following pages as prejudicing any philosophical doctrine of whatever kind. Okay, so Mary Shelley don't judge. She don't judge. All right. It is a subject also of additional interest to the author that this story was begun in the majestic region where the scene is principally laid, and in society which cannot cease to be regretted. I passed the summer of 1816 in the environs of Geneva. The season was cold and rainy, and in the evenings we crowded around a blazing wood fire, and occasionally amused ourselves with some German stories of ghosts, which happened to fall into our hands. These tales excited in us a playful desire of imitation. Two other friends. Playful desire of imitation. Okay, hold on. So they were sitting around telling ghost stories, and then they were trying to come up with their own, it sounds like. These tales, excited us a playful desire of imitation. Two other friends, a tale from the pen of one of whom would be far more acceptable to the public than anything I can ever hope to produce. Oh, don't be so modest. And myself agreed. Two other friends and myself agreed to write each a story founded on some supernatural occurrence. Okay, yeah. So they're sitting down agreeing to write a story. I think this is just kind of going over the story of how the book was written, where her and her friends tried to come up with who could write the scariest story. The weather, however, suddenly became serene, and my two friends left me on a journey among the Alps, and lost in the magnificent scenes which they present all memory of their ghostly visions. The following tale is the only one which has been completed. Oh, okay. So they set out to come up with scary stories. Whoever could write the best stories. They forgot theirs, and hers was the only one that was remembered. All right, cool. Volume 1. Letter 1. So now we're actually getting into the story. And I know that this has a really cool framing device in the fact that most of the story is told through the perspective of, and we'll get into it, but it's letters from this guy who's on a boat in the Arctic, like the Arctic Circle. And he's sending letters to his sister, I think. Spoilers. No, we'll get into that. To Mrs. Sawville, England. St. Petersburg, December 11th, 17 something. You will rejoice to hear that no disaster has accompanied the commencement of an enterprise which you have regarded with such evil forebodings. I arrived here yesterday, and my first task is to assure my dear sister of my welfare, and increasing confidence in the success of my undertaking. Aw, what a good brother. What a good brother. He lands and he says, I gotta make sure my sister knows I'm not dead. I am already far north of London, and as I walk in the streets of Petersburg, I feel a cold northern breeze play upon my cheeks, which braces my nerves and fills me with delight. Do you understand this feeling? This breeze, which has traveled from the regions towards which I am advancing, gives me a foretaste of those icy climes. Inspirited by this wind of promise, my daydreams become more fervent and vivid. I try in vain to be persuaded that the pole is the seat of frost and desolation. It ever presents itself to my imagination as the region of beauty and delight. Oh, so he's kind of psycho. He's he's excited to go to the North Pole, the Arctic Circle, for some reason. A region of delight, of beauty and delight. There, Margaret, the sun is forever visible, its broad disk just skirting the horizon, and diffusing a perpetual splendor. There, for with your leave, my sister, I will put some trust in preceding navigators. There, snow and frost are banished, and sailing over a calm sea, we may be wafted to a land surpassing in wonders and in beauty every region hereto discovered on the habitable globe. Its productions and features may be without example, as the phenomena of the heavenly bodies undoubtedly are in those undiscovered solitudes. What may not be expected in a country of eternal light? I just read that. I may there discover the wondrous power which attracts the needle. Oh, like a compass, yeah? Wow, that's cool. I may there discover the wondrous power which attracts the needle, and may regulate 1,000 celestial observations that require only this voyage to render their seeming eccentricities consistent forever. I shall satiate my ardent curiosity with the sight of a part of the world never before visited, and may tread a land never before imprinted by the foot of man. There are my enticements, and they are sufficient to conquer all fear of danger or death, and to induce in me to commence this laborious voyage with the joy a child feels when he embarks in a little boat with his holiday mates, on an expedition of discovery up his native river. That's cool, man. This is great. This is like candy, man. This is great prose. Really good writing. But supposing all these conjectures to be false, you cannot contest the inestimable benefit which I shall confer on all mankind to the last generation by discovering a passage near the pole to those countries, to reach which at present so many months are requisite, or by ascertaining the secret of the magnet, which, if at all possible, can only be effected by an undertaking such as mine. So he's out there, he's trying to discover big things. He is ambitious. He's got it in his head that he's gonna go figure stuff out, man. He's gonna go figure out why compass points north, and he's gonna figure out safe passage, and he feels like a little boy in a boat traveling upriver. This is great, man. This is really cool. So he's going to the, so okay, so what we've gathered so far is there's this guy, he's writing to his sister, making sure his sister knows he's still alive, and he's sending her these letters to say, hey, I'm excited. This is going to be really cool. I'm going to the freaking, Arctic Circle, North Pole. This is cool. Okay. What does this have to do with Frankenstein? We'll get to that. Be patient. Calm down. This is only the 4th page. Okay, we haven't gotten that far yet. Okay? Sip your little drink. Sip your little drink. Pull the blanket up over your chin. All right? Get cozy. We're in it for the ride. Okay? You don't have to go to the Arctic Circle. No, you can just sit at home in bed in your comfy comforter. Your comfy comforter. That's redundant. I'm bad at prose. All right, anyway. Carrying on. These reflections have dispelled the agitation with which I began my letter, and I feel my heart glow with an enthusiasm which elevates me to heaven. For nothing contributes so much to tranquilize the mind as a steady purpose, a point on which the soul may fix its intellectual eye. This expedition has been the favorite dream of my early years. I have read with ardor the accounts of the various voyages which have been made in the prospect of arriving at the North Pacific Ocean through the seas which surround the pole. You may remember that a history of all the voyages made for purposes of discovery composed the whole of our good Uncle Thomas's library. My education was neglected, yet I was passionately fond of reading. Sounds like someone I know. These volumes were my study day and night, and my familiarity with them increased. That regret which I had felt as a child. Okay, hold on. These volumes were my study day and night, and okay. These damn it. Okay. These volumes were my study day and night, and my familiarity with them increased that regret which I had felt as a child on learning that my father's dying injunction had forbidden my uncle to allow me to embark in a seafaring life. Oh, Dad didn't want him. Dad didn't want him to go. I'm not saying his dad didn't want him. I'm not saying his dad went to go get milk and never came back. I'm saying Dad didn't want him to be a seafaring. He didn't want him to embark on a seafaring life. Okay? Don't let your babies grow up to be cowboys. Don't let them grow up to be sea salts. Don't let them grow up to be salty sailor, pirate, adventurer men. These visions faded when I perused for the first time those poets whose effusions entranced my soul and lifted it to heaven. I also became a poet, and for 1 year lived in a paradise of my own creation. I imagined that I also might obtain a niche in the temple where the names of Homer and Shakespeare are consecrated. You were well acquainted with my failure, and how heavily I bore the disappointment. Aw, well, I mean, you tried. That's way more than anybody else can say, He said, I want to be a poet. I want to be as good as Homer, Shakespeare. But, sister, you are well acquainted with my failure, and how heavily I bore the disappointment. Aw, poor guy. But just at that time, I inherited the fortune of my cousin. There you go. And my thoughts were turned into the channel of their earlier bent. The North Pole. Yep. 6 years have passed since I resolved on my present undertaking. I can, even now, remember the hour from which I dedicated myself to this great enterprise. I commenced by inuring my body to hardship. Ooh, good man. I accompanied the whale fishers on several expeditions to the North Sea. This is not so subtle foreshadowing that we will be reading Moby Dick on this series on this channel. So stay tuned for that. And, right now we're in Frankenstein, so forget about. He's just talking about whales, and I want to read Moby Dick. Anyway, I accompanied the whale fishers on several expeditions to the North Sea. I voluntarily endured cold, famine, thirst, and want of sleep. I often worked harder than the common sailors during the day, and devoted my nights to the study of mathematics, the theory of medicine, and those branches of physical science from which a naval adventurer might derive the greatest practical advantage. Twice I actually hired myself as an undermate in a Greenland whaler, and acquitted myself to admiration. I must own I felt a little proud when my captain offered me the second dignity in the vessel, and entreated me to remain with the greatest earnestness. So valuable did he consider my services. So he's pretty good too. He set out to get really good at it, and he did. Get good. Get good, kids. And now, dear Margaret, okay, sister's name is Margaret. That may or may not be important later. His sister's name is Margaret. I don't know his name yet. And now, dear Margaret, do I do I not deserve to accomplish some great purpose? My life might have been passed in ease and luxury, but I preferred glory to every enticement that wealth placed in my path. Oh, that some encouraging voice would answer in the affirmative. My courage and my resolution is firm, but my hopes fluctuate, and my spirits are often depressed. I am about to proceed on a long and difficult voyage, the emergencies of which will demand all my fortitude. I am required not only to raise the spirits of others, but sometimes to sustain my own when theirs are failing. Wow. Dude, I'm in love with this guy. I'm in love with this character. And like, this is the 6th page. No wonder this is such a legendary novel. Like, I want this guy to succeed, you know? I want him to figure out why the compass points north. This is the most favorable period for traveling in Russia. They fly quickly over the snow in their sledges. The motion is pleasant, and in my opinion, far more agreeable than that of an English stagecoach. Yeah, it's probably way smoother, you know. On a stagecoach, you're yaw, you know. Gliding over the snow, it's like steady. The cold is not excessive. If you are wrapped in furs, a dress which I have already adopted. Oh, okay. I gotta get back into the flow of these sentences. The cold is not excessive if you are wrapped in furs, a dress which I have already adopted. For there is a great difference between walking the deck and remaining seated motionless for hours, with no exercise. For there is a great difference between walking the deck and remaining seated motionless for hours, when no exercise prevents the blood from actually freezing in your veins. Okay, there you go. I have no ambition to lose my life on the post road between St. Petersburg and Archangel. I shall depart for the latter town in a fortnight or 3 weeks, and my intention... fortnight. He said fortnight. He said fortnight. We gotta get the DJ air horn sound effects. Fortnite. Fortnite reference. Oh, the brain rot. The brain rot is ever present within me. Anyway, I digress. I shall depart for the latter town in a fortnight or 3 weeks, and my intention is to hire a ship there, which can easily be done by paying the insurance for the owner, and to engage as many sailors as I think necessary among those who are accustomed to the whale fishing. I wonder if we'll meet Ishmael and Queequeg. I do not intend to sail until the month of June. And when shall I return? Ah, dear sister, how can I answer this question? If I succeed, many, many months, perhaps years, will pass before you and I may meet. If I fail, you will see me again soon or never. Farewell, my dear, excellent Margaret. Heaven shower down blessings on you, and save me, that I may again and again testify my gratitude for all your love and kindness. Dude, this guy is... Dude, he's like a lover. He's a lover, not a fighter. Well, he's both. He's both, because what did he say? How did he say it? He said, I commenced by inuring my body to hardship. Oh, he inured his body to hardship. So he's a lover and a fighter. He loves poetry. This guy's awesome, dude. That was letter 1. Oh, your affectionate brother, R. Walton. I'm sure we'll learn, maybe we may or may not learn his first name in this book. It's R something. Or, R Walton. I'm going to call him Roger. Roger that, Commander. That was letter 1. Here's letter 2. And again, like I said, this is the framing device, and this is a little what little I know about Frankenstein is that the story is not told from Frankenstein's point of view, the doctor, not the monster, right? And that's the other thing that we'll get into is everybody mixes up. Frankenstein is not the name of the monster. The monster is just the monster or the creature. Frankenstein's the name of the doctor, and the story is not told from the point of view of Frankenstein. It's told from the point of view of this guy, R. Walton, who is sending letters to his sister Margaret the entire time. So this is sort of the framing device, and it's so cool to see this too because, and I'm just gonna gush for a second. You know, nowadays you have online internet horror stories like in the form of like No Sleep, like r/no sleep, that make it a requirement that the horror story has to be have some kind of framing device to add validity to it. And Mary Shelley was doing this all the way back in 1818. She said, "Oh, the story would be scarier. You know, all these three friends coming together to try to see who can write the scariest story." And she's probably thinking in her head, "Oh, you know, if I add a touch of, you know, realism in this, then it's really going to be, you know, all that more scary." So I don't know. It's just cool. It's just cool because you can see how this influences scary stories, and maybe that's just a part of, you know, scary stories in the first place, or folk stories. They have to have a touch of realism, you know. Whenever you're trying to scare someone at a campfire, you don't say, "Oh, well, this happened," you know. You say, "Oh, this is a made-up story." You say, "Oh, well, you know, my cousin's uncle's, you know, roommate had this scary thing happen to him." It's like, oh, it makes it more real because they're actually there. Anyway, I don't know. I'll shut up. I just think this whole letter framing device is really, really cool. All right, let's get into letter 2. Letter 2. To Mrs. Sawville, England. Archangel, 28th March, 17 something. Okay, so he made it to Archangel, right? That's what he said. He said that was the next city he was going to go to. Where did he start out from? I'm going back. St. Petersburg to Archangel. So he's there now. He's in Archangel. All right. How slowly the time passes here, encompassed as I am by frost and snow. Yet a second step is taken towards my enterprise. I have hired a vessel, and am accompanied in collecting my sailors. Those whom I have already engaged appear to be men on whom I can depend, and are certainly possessed of dauntless courage. But I have one want which I have never yet been able to satisfy, and the absence of the object of which I now feel as a most severe evil. I have no friend, Margaret. When I am glowing with the enthusiasm of success, there will be none to participate my joy. If I am assailed by disappointment, no one will endeavor to sustain me in dejection. I shall commit my thoughts to paper, it is true, but that is a poor medium for the communication of feeling. I desire the company of a man who could sympathize with me, whose eyes would reply to mine. Man, that hits too close to home for a lot of people nowadays. I'm just thinking, I'm like, why does that hit so close to home? He's like, I don't have any friends, Margaret. I don't have any friends. You know, nowadays we talk about the loneliness epidemic. We talk about how people are so lonely nowadays. You know, maybe everybody's just always been lonely, and that's just always a thing with humans. We're social creatures, right? Have no friends. Yep, you and every Discord mod. I have no friends. Okay, anyway, sorry. Okay. I desire the company of a man who could sympathize with me, whose eyes would reply to mine. You may deem me romantic, my dear sister, but I bitterly feel the want of a friend. I have no one near me, gentle yet courageous, possessed of a cultivated as well as a capacious mind. I'm gonna Google that word. Capacious. Capacious mind. What that means? Having a lot of space inside, roomy. Oh, wait, that's like a bad thing though, right? If you have a capacious mind, you have an empty mind. What? Is that what that means? The interior boasts a capacious living area with plenty of room for large family gatherings, says Oxford Dictionary. Having a lot of space inside, roomy. So a capacious mind. So he's saying he wants somebody with a big empty mind? No, he must mean like a big like smart guy, like someone that he can match wits with, you know? I don't know. Because for all the positive things I can say about this main character, he is a little bit full of himself. He's kind of egotist. He's got an inflated ego, I would say. So I think he kind of more means like somebody that I can match wits with. I have no one near me gentle yet courageous, possessed of a cultivated as well as of a capacious mind, whose tastes are like my own. Hello? Hold on. Oh, dang it. There we go. Okay. I have no one near me, gentle yet courageous. I feel like I almost want to read this in like an average Redditor voice. He's kind of turning into that right now with his ego, his inflated ego. I don't want him to be like a average Redditor. I have no one near me, gentle yet courageous, possessed of a cultivated as well as a capacious mind, whose tastes are like my own, to approve or amend my plans. It's like, I don't know. It kind of comes across like he's full of himself there. But that's okay, I guess. He can be a little full of himself, you know? He's a globetrotter. Anyway, how would such a friend repair the faults of your poor brother? Oh, okay. Well, he immediately says that he has faults that need repairing, so maybe he doesn't have as big of an ego as I thought. I am too ardent in execution and too impatient of difficulties. Okay, he's going on and on about his flaws now. So, okay, I was wrong. False alarm. He's not an average Redditor. But it is a still greater evil to me that I am self-educated. For the first 14 years of my life, I ran wild on a common and read nothing but our Uncle Thomas's books of voyage. That's a phrase I don't know. Okay, let me try that again. But it is a still greater evil to me that I am self-educated. For the first 14 years of my life, I ran wild on a common. Context tells me that means he didn't have like primary education. What did he say earlier? Oh, that he's self-educated. 14 years old. He ran wild on a common. I think that means he just didn't go to school. That's kind of what it says to me. And read nothing but our Uncle Thomas's books of voyages. At that age, I became acquainted with the celebrated poets of our own country. But it was only when it had ceased to be in my power to derive its most important benefits from such a conviction that I perceived the necessity of becoming acquainted with more languages than that of my native country. So he doesn't speak any other languages. Now I am 28 and am in reality more illiterate than many schoolboys of 15. It is true that I have thought, well, that's not true. The way that you write, the way that you write letters, you are, dude, if boys of 15 back in the 1700s that you were living in could write better than you, dude, 15-year-olds nowadays are so brain rotted with iPads and skibbity toilet. Oh my gosh. Say it ain't so. Are you saying that the 15-year-olds in your time period were freaking writing at this level? That's impossible. I refuse to believe it. That's impossible. It's impossible. Anyway, I'm in denial of that. He's being humble. That's that's what I'm getting from this. He's just being too humble. He's smarter than 15-year-olds. Are you smarter than a 5th grader? Do you think you're smarter than a 5th grader? That show's pretty humbling too. You got a big ego? You go on that show. Jeff Foxworthy, man, he'll humble you. You might be dumber than a 5th grader. No, okay, that's not a funny bit. Okay, all right. It is true that I have thought more, and that my daydreams are more extended and magnificent, but they want, as the painters call it, keeping. And I greatly need a friend who would have sense enough not to despise me as romantic, and affection enough for me to endeavor to regulate my mind. Okay, so he's a big dreamer. He big dreamer, and he's got a lot of these ideas and stuff. Daydreams are more extended, but they want, as the painters call it, keeping. They want keeping. So I guess maybe he's just got too many thoughts flying in and out of his head, is what he's saying. He's a daydreamer, a big daydreamer. He wants a friend who has a capacious mind that he can match wits with. Anyway, okay. Well, these are useless complaints. I shall certainly find no friend on the wide ocean, nor even here in Archangel, among merchants and seamen. Yet, okay, all right, get your laughs out. I said that word. I said that word. It's a different context, okay? It's an entirely, like, grow up, okay? Okay. This book is going to have the word semen in it a lot. Okay, grow up, okay? Go on. Get the laughs out. Go on. I'll wait. Okay. All right. All right. Got it out of your system? I'm going to say semen a lot more. Anyway. I shall certainly find no friend on the wide ocean, nor even here in Archangel among merchants and seamen. Yet some feelings, unallied to the dross of human nature, beat even in these rugged bosoms. My lieutenant, for instance, is a man of wonderful courage and enterprise. He is madly desirous of glory. He is an Englishman, and in the midst of national and professional prejudices, unsoftened by cultivation, retains some of the noblest endowments of humanity. I first became acquainted with him on board a whale vessel. Finding that he was unemployed in this city, I easily engaged him to assist in my enterprise. Okay, so we're getting to know the lieutenant, Englishman. He's ambitious. Okay. The master is a person of an excellent disposition, and is remarkable in the ship for his gentleness, and the mildness of his discipline. He is indeed of so amiable a nature that he will not hunt. Oh, a favorite and almost the only amusement here, because he cannot endure to spill blood. So he's the lover. He's the lover, not a fighter. The master. He is, moreover, heroically generous. Okay, well, real quick, what would the master be on a ship like this? What would the role of master be? Ship's master, also called... Oh, he's a captain. Okay. Is the ultimate authority and has full responsibility for a vessel, its crew, and cargo. So, okay, so I wrongly assumed... Huh. The master, or sailing master, is a historical rank for a naval warrant officer trained in and responsible for the navigation and ship handling of a sailing vessel. In the Royal Navy, the master was ranked with, but after the lieutenants. The rank became a commissioned officer rank and was renamed navigating lieutenant in... Oh, so he's not the captain. So the master is responsible for navigation. So he's the guy with the compass, and I mean the compass that you like walk across the map, you know, like in that scene in Atlantis. I love that scene when he's like navigating. He's just... I'm gonna put it up there. Anyway, so the lieutenant outranks him. Okay. Very nice. So the master, the navigator. Whenever I see master up there, I'm just gonna say the navigator now. The navigating lieutenant. Anyway, okay. He cannot endure to spill blood, so he won't hunt. He won't hunt. The navigator guy won't hunt. I'm picturing a guy in like those like big freaking goggle glasses who's like, oh, I can't do it. He is moreover heroically generous. Oh, of course he is. Some years ago he loved a young Russian lady of moderate fortune, and having amassed a considerable sum in prize money, the father of the girl consented to the match. He saw his mistress once before the destined ceremony, but she was bathed in tears, and throwing herself at his feet, entreated him to spare her, confessing at the same time that she loved another. Oh, the tea! But that he was poor, and that her father would never consent to the union. My generous friend reassured the suppliant, and on being informed of the name of her lover, instantly abandoned his pursuit. He had already bought a farm with his money, on which he had designed to pass the remainder of his life, but he bestowed the whole on his rival, together with the remains of his prize money to purchase stock, and then himself solicited the young woman's father to consent to her marriage with her lover. Bro! He's a cuck! he's a turbo cuck. What the... I don't know if I'm allowed to say that. I don't know if that's a word that YouTube hates. I don't know. But he's a total cuck. He literally gets cuckolded. She loves another guy. That's wild. And so he bought a farm. He had enough money, he bought a farm. This Russian girl already comes from like a wealthy background. He's got a farm. She tells him, I love this guy. I've been sleeping with this guy. We've been boning down. I don't want to marry you. I want to end up with this guy because I love him so much. And he goes, okay, have my farm. And what's more, I'm going to spend even more of my money to get you guys livestock. And I'm going to go tell your dad. I'm going to go tell your dad on your behalf because I can convince him to go along with it. Oh my gosh. And this is, we're supposed to see how heroically generous this guy is, but my gosh. That's crazy. Okay, so he went to go ask the father to consent to her marriage with her lover, but the old man decidedly refused, thinking himself bound in honor to my friend, who, when he found the father inexorable, quitted his country, nor returned until he heard that his former mistress was married according to her inclinations. Wow. So he's like, okay, I got to get out of here, and I won't come back until I know that she married the guy that she wants to marry. Dude, generous is an understatement. He's a cuck. Oh my gosh. What a noble fellow, you will exclaim. He is so, but then he has passed all his life on board a vessel, and has scarcely an idea beyond the rope and the shroud. Nah, dude. Dude, the minute that you find out that she loves another guy who's freaking poor, he ain't got no money. What is he gonna do for you, girl? You got like expensive tastes. You come from, what does he say? Mistress, he loved a Russian lady of moderate fortune. She's got moderate fortune. She's got expensive tastes. What are you doing sleeping with that poor dude? He can't make you happy. I'm just kidding. Money isn't everything. Oh well. Anyway. The tea. The tea was hot in that one. In that paragraph. My goodness. Anyway. The brother's over here just casually dropping bombs to his sister. I bet his sister's reading this and she's like, oh my, oh my, oh, the tea. Oh, the tea is very, warm, my lord. Anyway. Okay, but I do not suppose that because I complained a little, or because I can conceive a consolation for my toils which I may never know, that I am wavering in my resolutions. Oh, he says, he's telling her, don't suppose that. I read that wrong. He's saying, I do not suppose, he's telling her, don't suppose that just because I'm complaining that I'm done with this trip and I want to come home, I'm a little crybaby. Don't think of me like that. He's not wavering in his resolutions. Those are as fixed as fate, and my voyage is only now delayed until the weather shall permit my embarkation. Okay. The winter has been dreadfully severe, but the spring promises well, and it is considered as a remarkably early season, so that perhaps I may sail sooner than I expected. I shall do nothing rashly. You know me sufficiently to confide in my prudence and considerateness whenever the safety of others is committed to my care. I cannot describe to you my sensations on the near prospect of my undertaking. It is impossible to communicate to you a conception of the trembling sensation, half pleasurable and half fearful, with which I am preparing to depart. I am going to unexplored regions, to the land of mist and snow, but I shall kill no albatross, therefore do not be alarmed for my safety. Is that like a superstitious thing? Because an albatross, if you don't know, an albatross is like a giant freaking huge bird. I shall kill no albatross, therefore do not be alarmed. It must be like a superstitious thing. Like if you kill an albatross, it's like 8 years of bad luck. That's how I read that. I don't know. I'm not going to look that one up. Robert. Oh, okay. I'm skipping ahead, but we did confirm his name is not Roger. It is Robert. Right there on the screen. Right there. Right there. Robert Walton. Gotta love Robert Walton. Okay, anyway, I shall kill no albatross, therefore do not be alarmed for my safety. Shall I meet you again, after having traversed immense seas, and returned by the most southern cape of Africa, or America? Oh, that's a question. Okay. Sometimes these sentences are long, and I get lost in the sauce. Shall I meet you again, after having traversed immense seas, and returned by the most southern cape of Africa, or America? I dare not expect such success, yet I cannot bear to look on the reverse of the picture. Continue to write to me by every opportunity. I may receive your letters, though the chance is very doubtful, on some occasions when I need them most to support my spirits. Oh, so he's saying, keep writing to me, you know? You never know. I might receive them on the days that I need them the most. Very cute, very cute. I love you very tenderly. Remember me with affection should you never hear from me again. Ominous end to a letter, Robert Walton. Your affectionate brother, Robert Walton. So, if you're trying to put her worries to rest, don't end a letter like that, my guy. Don't tell her to remember you with affection should you never hear from you again. What, like, don't say that to her, man. She's over here. She finished that letter and she's wiping a tear. Is that how you want your sister to think of you? You know, do you want her to be afraid that you're gonna die? Maybe he does. Maybe he's a sicko. Maybe he's a sadist who's sitting there. He's writing it. This'll give her a good scare. For all we know, he could have his feet kicked up in freaking Acapulco. I don't even know where that's at. He could have his feet kicked up in Aruba. He could have his feet kicked up on the beach chilling in Jamaica, Bermuda, Bahama. Come on, pretty mama. I don't know what I'm talking about. That's not at all what's happening. This is supposed to be a scary book. Oh, whoops. Okay, letter 3. It's a short one. I scrolled a little too far. Letter 3. Okay. To Mrs. Sawville, England. Oh, okay. So picking up on the way that he titles these letters, we can also make we can also draw the conclusion that she is married to a Mr. Sawville. Okay, because Mrs. MRS. Okay, so we know she's married. To Mrs. Sawville, England. Am I pronouncing that wrong? Is it Seville? It's probably Seville. Or if they're French, it's Savier. No, I'm just kidding. They're definitely I actually don't know how to pronounce French. I don't know if that was right. That's probably not right. Anyway, it says England right there. They're definitely not French. July 7th, 17 something. My dear sister, I write a few lines in haste to say that I am safe and well advanced on my voyage. This letter will reach England by a merchantman now on its homeward voyage from Archangel, more fortunate than I am, who may not see my native land perhaps for many years. I am, however, in good spirits. My men are bold, and apparently firm of purpose. Nor do the floating sheets of ice that continually pass us, indicating the dangers of the region towards which we are advancing, appear to dismay them. We have already reached a very high latitude, but it is the height of summer, and although not so warm as in England, the southern gales, which blow us speedily towards those shores which I so ardently desire to attain, breathe a degree of renovating warmth which I had not expected. No incidents have hitherto befallen us that would make a figure in a letter. One or two stiff gales, and the breaking of a mast are accidents which experienced navigators scarcely remember to record. That's a cool way of saying that. So he's like, nothing too crazy's happened, nothing that we felt the need to write down, because stuff like this happens all the time. And I shall be well content if nothing worse happens to us during our voyage. Adieu. Maybe they are French. French suspicion confirmed. Adieu, my dear Margaret. Be assured that for my own sake, as well as yours, I will not rashly encounter danger. I will be cool, persevering, and prudent. Remember me to all my English friends. Most affectionately yours, R.W. Robert... What? Robert Walton. Robert Walton. R.W. Robert Walton is like just oozing main character energy, dude. Straight up. Like, it's crazy that most of the story is not going to be about him. I just know that going into it. You know, spoilers. Spoiler alert. We'll get to it. But anyway. Letter 4. To Mrs. Seville, England, August 5th, 17-something. So strange an accident has happened to us that I cannot forbear recording it, although it is very probable that you will see me before these papers can come into your possession. Last Monday, July 31st, we were nearly surrounded by ice, which closed in the ship on all sides, scarcely leaving her the sea room in which she floated. Our situation was somewhat dangerous, especially as we were compassed round by a very thick fog. We accordingly lay to, hoping that some change would take place in the atmosphere and weather. About 2 o'clock the mist cleared away, and we beheld, stretched out in every direction, vast and irregular plains of ice, which seemed to have no end. That's scary, man. I mean, just this voyage is like terrifying. Like, what an isolated place to be. The mist clears, and in every direction is just endless sheets of ice that don't break up at all. They're just plains of ice which seem to have no end. That's scary. Some of my comrades groaned, and my own mind began to grow watchful with anxious thoughts, when a strange sight suddenly attracted our attention and diverted our solicitude from our own situation. We perceived a low carriage, fixed on a sledge and drawn by dogs, pass on towards the north, at the distance of half a mile. A being which had the shape of a man, but apparently of gigantic stature, sat in the sledge and guided by dogs. We watched the rapid progress of the traveler with our telescopes until he was lost among the distant inequalities of the ice. This appearance excited our unqualified wonder. We were, as we believed, many hundred miles from any land, but this apparition seemed to denote that it was not, in reality, so distant as we had supposed. Shut in, however, by ice, it was impossible to follow his track, which we had observed with the greatest attention. So, they're locked in, and I don't mean like focused. I mean they're literally like locked in with this ice. Plains of ice in every direction that seem to stretch out endlessly. And way off in the distance, they see the figure of a gigantic man on a sledge being pulled by dogs across this huge, vast landscape of ice. And he goes across the ice. They have to pull out their... He's so far out, they have to use their telescopes to watch him as he goes by. And eventually he disappears off into the distance. That is haunting, man. That is so scary. And then, because it's ice, they can't track him. He didn't leave any tracks. About 2 hours after this occurrence, we heard the ground sea, and before night the ice broke and freed our ship. We, however, lay to until the morning, fearing to encounter in the dark those large loose masses which float about after the breaking up of the ice. Oh, okay. So before night the ice broke, but they were up all night because they were afraid that the chunks of ice, they were going to crash into the chunks of ice and sink their ship. I profited of this time to rest for a few hours. Okay, so he rested a little bit. Anyway, in the morning, however, as soon as it was light, I went upon deck and found all the sailors busy on one side of the vessel, apparently talking to someone in the sea. It was in fact a sledge, like that we had seen before, which had drifted towards us in the night on a large fragment of ice. Only one dog remained alive, but there was a human being with it, whom the sailors were persuading to enter the vessel. He was not, as the other travelers seemed to be, a savage inhabitant of some undiscovered island, but a European. When I appeared on deck, the master said, "Here is our captain, and he will not allow you to perish on the open sea." On perceiving me, the stranger addressed me in English, although with a foreign accent. "Before I come on board your vessel," said he, "will you have the kindness to inform me whither you are bound?" You may conceive my astonishment on hearing such a question addressed to me from a man on the brink of destruction, and to whom I should have supposed that my vessel would have been a resource which he would not have exchanged for the most precious wealth the earth can afford. Yeah, he's like, get on our ship, man, you're gonna die. And he's like, well, which way you headed? Like, what are you talking about? Get on the ship, you're gonna die. I need to know which way you going. You know, are you heading the direction I'm heading? Because if not, I'll catch the other ship going the other way. All right. A question addressed to me from a man on the brink of destruction, and to whom I should have supposed that my vessel would have been a resource which he would not have exchanged for the most precious wealth the earth can afford. I replied, however, that we were on a voyage of discovery towards the northern pole. Upon hearing this, he appeared satisfied and consented to come on board. Good God! Margaret, if you had seen the man who thus capitulated for his safety, your surprise would have been boundless. His limbs were nearly frozen, and his body dreadfully emaciated by fatigue and suffering. I never saw a man in so wretched a condition. We attempted to carry him into the cabin, but as soon as he had quitted the fresh air, he fainted. We accordingly brought him back to the deck and restored him to animation by rubbing him with brandy and forcing him to swallow a small quantity. That'll do it. That'll wake you up. As soon as he shewed signs of life, we wrapped him up in blankets and placed him near the chimney of the kitchen stove. That's what you do. Actually, you'd want to take off all his clothes too.
Bruh.
You want him to be naked, because when you're naked, hear me out. If you're freezing, you got hypothermia, you got frostbite. When you get naked, it's easier for your body to like dry off and stuff. Because otherwise, the clothes that you're wearing, the moisture on the clothes that you're wearing, is just going to keep you like frozen. It's going to keep you colder. You know, you don't want wet. In other words, you don't want wet clothes on. There's less. You have to warm up all of those wet clothes and stuff too. You got to get naked. You heat up faster. I swear, it's a thing. It's a thing. So, imagine this guy that they just picked up off the ice. Imagine he's naked now. He's naked in front of the stove. Imagine it. Are you imagining it that way that I described it? Okay, anyway. We wrapped him up in blankets and placed him near the chimney of the kitchen stove. By slow degrees, he recovered and ate a little soup, which restored him wonderfully. 2 days passed in this manner before he was able to speak, and I often feared that his sufferings had deprived him of understanding. When he had in some measure recovered, I removed him to my own cabin, and attended on him as much as my duty would permit. I never saw a more interesting creature. His eyes have generally an expression of wildness, and even madness, but there are moments when, if any one performs an act of kindness towards him, or does him the most trifling service, his whole countenance is lighted up, as it were, with a beam of benevolence and sweetness that I never saw equalled. But he is generally melancholy and despairing, and sometimes he gnashes his teeth, as if impatient of the weight of woes that oppress him. When my guest was a little recovered, I had great trouble to keep off the men, who wished to ask him 1,000 questions, but I would not allow him to be tormented by their idle curiosity, and a state of body and mind whose restoration evidently depended upon entire repose. Once, however, the lieutenant asked why he had come so far upon the ice in so strange a vehicle. His countenance instantly assumed an aspect of the deepest gloom, and he replied, "To seek one who fled from me." "And did the man whom you pursued travel in the same fashion?" "Yes." "Then I fancy we have seen him, for the day before we picked you up we saw some dogs drawing a sledge with a man in it across the ice." This aroused the stranger's attention, and he asked a multitude of questions concerning the route which the demon, as he called him, had pursued. Soon after, when he was alone with me, he said, "I have doubtless excited your curiosity, as well as that of these good people, but you are too considerate to make inquiries." "Certainly, I would indeed be very impertinent and inhuman. It would be, okay, Certainly, it would indeed be very impertinent and inhuman in me to trouble you with any inquisitiveness of mine. And yet you rescued me from a strange and perilous situation. You have benevolently restored me to life." Soon after this he inquired if I thought that the breaking up of the ice had destroyed the other sledge. I replied that I could not answer with any degree of certainty, for the ice had not broken until near midnight, and the traveler might have arrived at a place of safety before that time. But of this I could not judge. So he's wondering, he's like, hey, when the ice broke up, do you think that destroyed him? Do you think that the sledge I was pursuing with the demon on it, do you think that killed him? He's like, it's hard to say, man. Possible, but he was pretty far. From this time the stranger seemed very eager to be upon deck, to watch for the sledge, which had before appeared, but I have persuaded him to remain in the cabin, for he is far too weak to sustain the rawness of the atmosphere. But I have promised that someone should watch for him, and give him instant notice if any new object should appear in sight. Such is my journal of what relates to this strange occurrence up to the present day. So he is intently focused on finding this demon. He's trying to track him down. He wants to know where this bigger statured creature goes. And I think you all can guess who the big man is. I'm not gonna give any spoilers, but this guy that they picked up and they revived him back to life has been chasing him. And who knows how they got there in the freaking North Pole. But he's very intently he's very intent on seeing where this guy goes and continuing to chase him. Such is my journal of what relates to this strange occurrence up to the present day. The stranger has gradually improved in health, but is very silent, and appears uneasy when any one except myself enters his cabin. Yet his manners are so conciliating and gentle that the sailors are all interested in him, although they have had very little communication with him. For my own part, I begin to love him as a brother, and his constant and deep grief fills me with sympathy and compassion. He must have been a noble creature in his better days, being even now in wreck so attractive and amiable. I said in one of my letters, my dear Margaret, that I should find no friend on the wide ocean, yet I have found a man who, before his spirit had been broken by misery, I should have been happy to have possessed as the brother of my heart. I shall continue my journal concerning the stranger at intervals, should I have any fresh incidents to record. Wow. That's a really cool setup, that he's saying, you know, I don't have anyone who's like my equal. I don't have anyone I can confide in as a brother. And who washes up onto his boat, you know, but this person that he feels he has some kind of affection toward. August 13th, 17 something. My affection for my guest increases every day. He excites at once my admiration and my pity to an astonishing degree. How can I see so noble a creature destroyed by misery without feeling the most poignant grief? He is so gentle, yet so wise. His mind is so cultivated, and when he speaks, although his words are culled with the choicest art, yet they flow with rapidity and unparalleled eloquence. Unlike me when I'm trying to read prose. He is now much recovered from his illness, and is continually on the deck, apparently watching for the sledge that preceded his own. Yet, although unhappy, he is so utterly occupied by his own misery, but that he interests himself deeply in his employments of others. In the employments of others. Okay, so he although unhappy, he's not so utterly occupied by his own misery, but that he interests himself deeply in the employments of others. So he's out there helping, you know. He has asked me many questions concerning my design, and I have related my little history frankly to him. He appeared pleased with the confidence and suggested several alterations in my plan, which I shall find exceedingly useful. Wow. So he's smart. There is no pedantry in his manner, but all he does appears to spring solely from the interest he instinctively takes in the welfare of those who surround him. He is often overcome by gloom, and then he sits by himself and tries to overcome all that is sullen or unsocial in his humor. These paroxysms pass from him like a cloud from before the sun, though his dejection never leaves him. I have endeavored to win his confidence, and I trust that I have succeeded. One day I mentioned to him the desire I had always felt of finding a friend who might sympathize with me and direct me by his counsel. I said I did not belong to that class of men who are offended by advice. I am self-educated, and perhaps I hardly rely sufficiently upon my own powers. I wish, therefore, that my companion should be wiser and more experienced than myself, to confirm and support me. Nor have I believed it impossible to find a true friend. I agree with you, replied the stranger, in believing that friendship is not only a desirable but a possible acquisition. I once had a friend, the most noble of human creatures, and am entitled, therefore, to judge respecting friendship. You have hope and the world before you, and have no cause for despair. But I have lost everything, and cannot begin life anew. Ooh, man, it's heavy. As he said this, his countenance became expressive of a calm, settled grief that touched me to the heart. But he was silent, and presently retired to his cabin. Even broken in spirit as he is, no one can feel more deeply than he does the beauties of nature. The starry sky, the sea, and every sight afforded by these wonderful regions seems still to have the power of elevating his soul from earth. Such a man has a double existence. He may suffer misery and be overwhelmed by disappointments, yet when he has retired into himself, he will be like a celestial spirit that has a halo around him, within whose circle no grief or folly ventures. Wow. That's good. That's crazy. What a bar. I gotta read that again. Even broken in spirit as he is, no one can feel more deeply than he does the beauties of nature. The starry sky, the sea, and every sight afforded by these wonderful regions seems still to have the power of elevating his soul from the earth. Such a man has a double existence. He may suffer misery and be overwhelmed by disappointments, yet when he has retired into himself, he will be like a celestial spirit that has a halo around him, within whose circle no grief or folly ventures. Will you laugh at the enthusiasm I express concerning this divine wanderer? If you do, you must have certainly lost that simplicity which was once your characteristic charm. Yet if you will, smile at the warmth of my expressions, while I find every day new causes for repeating them. Wow. Dang. That's so good, man. So you see their bond kind of building and their trust kind of growing, and at least on the captain's side, Robert's side, the respect that he has for this man, the stranger, is growing. He sees how torn up on the inside he is, and he has this empathy and this desire to crack him open and to see what's going on and to hear his story and to make him feel better, to be his friend. It's really wholesome, actually. August 19th, 17 something. Yesterday the stranger said to me, "You may easily perceive, Captain Walton, that I have suffered great and unparalleled misfortunes. I have determined once that the memory of these evils should die with me. But you have won me to alter my determination. You seek for knowledge and wisdom, as I once did. And I ardently hope that the gratification of your wishes may not be a serpent to sting you, as mine has been. I do not know that the relation of my misfortunes will be useful to you, yet, if you are inclined, listen to my tale." I'm going to read that again. "I do not know that the relation of my misfortunes will be useful to you, yet, if you are inclined, listen to my tale. I believe that the strange incidents connected with it will afford a view of nature, which may enlarge your faculties and understanding. You will hear of powers and occurrences such as you have been accustomed to believe impossible. But I do not doubt that my tale conveys in its series internal evidence of the truth of the events of which it is composed." My neighbors are loud, dude. Look at me. Look at this nose. I'm nosy. Look at this nose. Okay. Okay. All right. "You may easily conceive that I was much gratified by the offered communication, yet I could not endure that he should renew his grief by a recital of his misfortunes. I felt the greatest eagerness to hear the promised narrative, partly from curiosity and partly from a strong desire to ameliorate his fate, if it were in my power. I expressed these feelings in my answer. 'I thank you,' he replied, 'for your sympathy, but it is useless. My fate is nearly fulfilled. I wait but for one event, and then I shall repose in peace. I understand your feeling,' continued he, perceiving that I wished to interrupt him, 'but you are mistaken, my friend. If thus you will allow me to name you, you are mistaken, my friend, if thus you will allow me to name you,' his friend. 'Nothing can alter my destiny. Listen to my history, and you will perceive how irrevocably it is determined. He then told me that he would commence his narrative the next day, when I should be at leisure. The promise drew from me the warmest thanks. I have resolved every night, when I am not engaged, to record, as nearly as possible in his own words, what he has related during the day. If I should be engaged, I will at least make notes. This manuscript will doubtless afford you the greatest pleasure, but to me who know him, and who hear it from his own lips, with what interest and sympathy shall I read it in some future day? Wow. So, the stranger finally tells him, I'm going to tell you my tale. I was going to let the whole story die with me, but meeting you has made me think that I should tell you the story. I don't know if it's going to help you or if it's going to hurt you, but if you think of me as a friend, then listen to my tale. And he says, oh, well, maybe your fate isn't sealed. Maybe you don't have such a gloomy fate, and we can figure something out. And he says, no. Once you hear the story, you'll know that I'm doomed to die. Let me get the story off my chest of what happened to me, and then I'll die, basically. Wow. So he says, okay, and he's going to start telling him tomorrow when he has leisure, when he should be at leisure. So we're going to get into the story. We're going to get into the story proper. So we've finished the framing devices, chapter 1. Yep. So this is the story that he tells him, and the rest of the story, except for like the ending, because like I said, I know the major plot points. I haven't sat down and fully read everything, but I know from other videos and from Junji Ito's work the major plot points of the book. But anyway, the rest of the story, except for like right up to the very end, is going to be the story proper of what went down with Frankenstein and with the monster and with all of that. So we're going to hear all of that. And Robert Walton has written it down in a manuscript when he sat and he listened to this man, the stranger, relate the story and tell the story of what happened. And all of this is from the perspective of him traveling in the North Pole, in the Arctic Circle, isolated and on the brink of death, So this is really great. I think that's going to do it for episode 1. And look forward to episode 2 when we get into the story proper. This just feels like the best place to end. I've already been recording for close to an hour and a half. So the video should be, I'm thinking, right around an hour long, maybe just over an hour long, because I'm going to shave off a couple things here and there. But yeah, thanks for listening. If anybody sees this, I don't know how well it's going to do. I guess we'll see. But yeah, again, thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next one.